My first rave was in the warehouse I was living in. I went home. I went to my first rave, like going home rave, yeah. And the whole place was like drapes out, and I'd never seen any like UV art before.
Step inside this bus! Don't you even step inside this bus!
Dorset police block a main road to keep New Age travellers of a seaside resort.
This is my home, and I'm gonna protect it!
Like, it was like a war. It is awful for them. And they deserve respect, they really do. They were the peace convoy. Peace is the main word, okay? That was what it was about.
UK rave culture has changed a lot since its beginnings in the late 80s. Nowadays, clubbing is fueled by corporate interest and a casual trendiness that spans sponsored stages at summer festivals and high-priced ticketed pre-sales to influencer DJs. Despite this, the early progenitors of this movement were of a grassroots and DIY generation. Fueled by mass civil unrest and the popularity of drugs such as ecstasy, the 80s marked a new era in rave culture, with the second summer of love giving way to the rise of acid house and illegal raves. A lesser-told story outside of the UK's major cities is how this rave music culture made its way to rural England, where many chose to live nomadic lifestyles in buses and camper vans. This movement was headed by outsiders, the underclass and the marginalised, looking to dance through the bleak landscape of Thatcher's Britain. Despite having roots in the counterculture of the 1960s and 70s, the inception of acid house introduced a new generation of young people to new age culture, as hundreds left their homes in search of sound systems across the southwest and UK countryside. For this new generation of ravers, dance music was a tool of resistance against capitalism and its growing destruction of the environment. One of these travellers' stories is Helen, who joined the New Age Travellers at the age of 15. She is an artist and the mother of music producer Kai Whiston.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that.
Cute. You've got 2 chairs.
One thing I'm interested to hear is what made you join the New Age Traveller community?
My mum, well, we never bonded, so I left home at 15 and moved into a warehouse with like 13 punks. My friend was like, we're having a party tonight, and it was a full-scale rave.
Wow.
And I looked like Susie Sue from Susie and the Banshees, but the next day I was like, this is fucking it. Every weekend we'd go all around the UK. We'd be in Oxford and someone would say, there's a party in Wales, so we'd drive there. You know, it was like Spiral Tribe, Circus Warp, Universe, that was a really good one. And obviously with Glastonbury, we'd get traveller tickets. Yeah. So you turn up in your truck or your van with your dog and your baby. I was a raver. Like, I'd go raving on a Wednesday in the Hub Club in Bath, and then I'd go to the free parties, which was more my thing because it was like a festival. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Castle Morton. That was like the last big festival.
Wait, so you were there?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh my God, tell me, what was it like?
It was insane.
During the 80s, following Thatcher's crackdown on labour unions and outsider lifestyles, new laws were born against the travellers and protesters, which made it easier to persecute the resistant underbelly of British society. In 1992, music collectives such as Spiral Tribe, Bedlam and DIY found themselves at the centre of a week-long rave in Castle Morton in Worcestershire. It's considered to be one of the largest and most significant illegal raves in British history, and made national news as an estimated 20,000 ravers came from across the country in support, including Helen. But the event resulted in a moral panic, which gave way to the Criminal Justice Act of 1994 that toughened laws on trespass, antisocial behaviour, and infamously, unlicensed gatherings of people listening to music characterised by the emission of a succession of repetitive beats.
And it was like a black sea. It's actually getting me upset because it was like a black sea of police carrying the rigs away. So that was 30 years ago, but obviously there was so many parties before that.
Yeah.
You know, but that was like the last big one. Like, it was like a war.
Yeah.
It is awful for them. And they deserve respect, they really do. They were the peace convoy. Peace is the main word, okay? That was what it was about.
As a second-generation New Age traveller, London-based recording artist and producer Kai Whiston has spent 3 years crafting an album that captures the mysticism of 90s rave culture. At 23 years old, Whiston has collaborated with artists such as Shy Girl, VTSS, and Cuckoo Chloe, having taught himself production from YouTube tutorials and using computer equipment provided by government schemes for low-income households. His album Quiet is Kept, FOG, is a part myth, part documentary interpretation of his experiences growing up in the New Age traveller community that blends UK dance music from the late 90s with otherworldly sound design, featuring contributions from the likes of Pussy Riot and Igloo Ghost and his mother Helen. It offers an honest glimpse on the struggles and joys of his family upbringing.
What were your experiences growing up like, coming from a traveller background?
It was something I was just didn't tell anyone at school about being a traveller. It was something I hid because I saw what happened to the kids that were open about it. Even not even just from a traveller, even just being on benefits. It was just people, how kids are, they're just cruel, and I think I'd get angry at myself or angry at my mum or whatever. It was only until I grew up I understood that I enjoyed my perspective way better, and I enjoyed the perspective of travellers or people in poverty. It felt like more of a valuable voice. I think my approach to it isn't 100% someone who's been in it and knows the ins and outs. It's an in-between, someone that was a part of it, and it also has perspectives from other walks of life, from being a music producer or living in London or going to uni, which are just very uniquely non-traveller things.
Kai found inspiration and collaboration alongside fellow Dorset-born producer Igloo Ghost. The pair are part of a global scene of artists bound together by their termly online sound and aesthetics. Both outsiders from the conventional route into electronic music, the pair touch on themes of Dorset's New Age spiritualism in their own work. On Igloo Ghost's 2021 album, Ley Line Eon, he draws on similar ideas around rural folkloric traditions, creating his own lore around the creatures and sonics of his work based on his native home.
I guess I'm interested to know from your perspective as well, how do you feel that growing up in Shaftesbury has influenced your sound?
We always used to talk about escaping this mundane, rural, just nothingness. But I think it's kind of taken until quite recently. You kind of realise there's so much untapped story potential and just inspiration here that a lot of people just don't know about. When I was a teenager, I don't know, I'd kind of vicariously try and experience cool culture or whatever by reading shit on the internet, and it'd always be in these cities that felt a million miles away, these bustling metropolises and shit. Yeah, it kind of just it always felt the place we grew up was somehow culturally invalid. And I think a lot of people probably feel that way and kind of try and pretend they kind of project themselves into a culture that they're not really from, just to give it some kind of some credibility or something.
And why do you think people are kind of moving more towards fantasy and escapism?
Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, at least I know of the Travellers, it was obviously the historical relevance of the stone circles and Stonehenge and the summer solstice and Glastonbury Festival being in Somerset.
The internet's definitely an unbearable place. Life is pretty much unbearable right now. That's kind of the obvious answer.
I don't know, I still believe this, I haven't lived that life for a lot of years now, but I still believe that we all have the right to live in the way that we wish to live. Oh my gosh. As long as we're not harming anybody else. And and travellers are one of those groups of people that have made a life choice and are judged for it. Yeah. They are really judged for it.
I gave up the most beautiful flat I had. I had a fireplace in my bedroom, it was the most gorgeous flat. And I gave it up to live in a caravan I bought for £8 because that was all I wanted.
Just the sense of freedom, living in the woods, waking up in the morning, you don't have to go anywhere, time doesn't exist.
We lived outside.
Yeah.
We lived around the fire.
This is the album that's coming out.
Okay.
And then this is the last song. It's called 10-10-73.
Oh my god! What?
What's 10-10-73?
My birthday!
You were all over the album as well.
My first rave was in the warehouse I was living in. I went home. That's what I went to my first rave, like going home rave, yeah. And the whole place was like draped out, and I'd never seen any like UV art before, so that just blew my mind to start with. Before anything else did, it was more the art side of it and how cool it was. You know, over like the drugs or anything. It wasn't like, oh, wait, I'll do some drugs and then go somewhere. It was like, you know, oh, wow.
The British New Age traveller community has mostly disbanded, with groups such as Spiral Tribe and Exodus Collective dropping from media attention, with many disbanding to more tolerant European countries. Yet the influence of free party culture lives on, as a new generation of raving youth create global online communities united by outsider and remix culture. Although the means of communication has changed and the internet has revolutionized the speed and reach at which we communicate with one another, the DIY ethos laid out by the ravers of the 90s lives on.
Traveller, but I'm not a crusty traveller, and I'm not a posy raver. I'm just sort of a person that blats between both worlds, really, between two worlds.